Good afternoon. Before I answer questions and talk about our upcoming basketball season, I want to first express my gratitude to Dr. Robbins for his incredible support over the past 2 years. I can't imagine a better relationship a college coach of any kind can have with the university president. I also want to thank Dave Hickey and our athletic administration for their efforts and support. Most of all, I want to thank our fans for their heartfelt love of our basketball program. Many college basketball programs have a strong fan base. However, I can't imagine one more passionate and loyal than ours. As we now begin a new basketball season and any investigation into our program proceeds, I will continue to work as hard as I can to promote and reinforce a culture of compliance as a part of our basketball program, just like I have done for the last 10 plus years. And I'll do this with the support of a very strong team alongside of me every step of the way. Moving forward, I'm also going to continue to follow our University of Arizona policy of not commenting on any part of any investigation that involves our university. I look forward today and moving forward to answering any and really all of your questions about our basketball team and most importantly, this upcoming season. Go ahead.
Coach, what have you learned in the last couple of years with what's going on in the basketball landscape across the country? Not your program, but just across the country. What's your take? Is basketball being targeted right now? I mean, what's going on with college basketball across the country?
No, I think like any industry, what once was doesn't mean that it's the same today. And, my tenure at Arizona really speaks to that. When we first came here as a new staff, players, I'll name a few, Brendan Lavender, Kyle Fogg, Jamel Horn, Nick Wise, who would have been in his last year for us. Those were guys that are quality players, very highly recruited out of high school, but stayed for 4 years, got their degree. In the first recruiting class that we had, a guy named Solomon Hill, it seems like, 20 years ago that he was here, but Solomon's made himself into an excellent NBA player. He's had a great career, but Solomon was picked in the first round as a senior, and again he left with his degree. We had guys from Los Angeles like Jordan Mays that were a real part of every team that he was on in a role, maybe not a starting role, but in a role that helped us win. Fast forward. And, today it's so much about how fast a lot of these, young prospects can get from where they are in high school and become a professional. And as part of that path, our university is with them, and oftentimes not for a very long period of time. Having said that, we've had our fair share of very young, talented players that did an amazing job for us, represented our university well, and made all the sense in the world to leave here and pursue their professional dreams. Lowry Markkinen came back about a month ago, has a little son who's going to be about 7 feet 5 inches, married somebody who lived across the street from him in the country of Finland. And you look at Lowry, I was just in awe physically of how big he is today and just how young he is, but to watch him pursue his dreams playing for the Chicago Bulls made all the sense in the world for him to leave. Aaron Gordon, who might have been one of our first young players to leave after a year. You look at Aaron, he's on the brink of being an NBA All-Star. He's a great kid, great family, loves the University of Arizona. And so there are examples like that. DeAndre is the one that happened most recently, and just to kind of watch the rookie year that he had with the Phoenix Suns. He speaks for himself on why he should have left. So I think you can't just roll your eyes at maybe today's model. It's changed. I think the biggest difference is if somebody would have told me over 10 years ago that we would have signed 61 players to the National Letter of Intent, in 11 recruiting classes, I would have told you that things would have gone really, really bad, and that would have probably maintained a number of coaches during that tenure. But that's, in fact, what we've done. We've signed 61 players to the national letter in 11 years, and that's a lot of turnover. And if you look at that in the real world, it would almost be, the analogy that I would use is, the better your organization is doing, the more success, the better season, the better year they had in the industry that they're in, the more of your workforce you lose. And that's not true. The more success you have as an organization, the more stability that I think follows. So college basketball, that model's very different than what I just mentioned, and because of that, I think it puts pressure on everybody, including families and kids that are making decisions.
So has it made recruiting harder for you as coaches?
I think the entire landscape is just much different, is how I would say. Harder, I don't know if that's the correct term. It's just, it's unique. It's hard to compare generations. Let's use Sean Elliott as the example, arguably the most productive player that's ever played here. If Sean were here for 9 months or 2 years, what would you think of him today? What would have happened back then? And guess what? There would have been a new Sean Elliott that would have come here sooner rather than later. So it's very difficult to compare.
So what do you think about that added pressure?
Pressure?
That the whole landscape brings to the coaching community?
Well, it's a balancing act. It's about coaching your team. It's about building your program. While these student athletes are here, you want to make sure that they're moving towards their degree. That's one thing that we're incredibly proud of. Every senior that's left here, everybody that's ever exhausted their eligibility, has graduated except one, and his name is Keanu Pinder. And Keanu's a couple classes away. If you know Keanu's story, he came not only from Australia to the United States, but also came through a junior college. And I believe that he'll graduate at some point, maybe as soon as Christmas. But with that, that's also an incredible challenge, because you don't have those set up for 8 semesters. You have several of these young people that are only going to be here for a couple of years. And I'll point to Jared Bayless as kind of the difference in the landscape. Imagine Jared Bayless was a lottery pick after 1 year here at Arizona, and just graduated this past spring. And he spoke at our commencement. It took him about 9 more years to finish, but he was able to, because our university is online, and we have a program, Cats Forever program, in which any of these guys can tap in and use our resources to finish their degree. But you think about how different that is, that somebody did that after only being here for 2 semesters to get their degree. It's remarkable. So there's a lot of different stories and storylines that I think are in today's world of college basketball.
A lot of people are looking forward to seeing Nico Mannion play. Does he have a chance to be one of the real special players here?
Nico does. And what I would say to you about Nico Mannion, and we talk a lot to Nico, and even in his family when we were recruiting him, is there's a lot of high expectations for him. And I have no doubt he'll meet those high expectations, but he's still 18 years old, 19 years old, and he's a small part of a big picture, and he's a really integral part of our team this year. But he's going to need a lot of help. He's not going to be able to do it alone, and he's learning. I believe this about Nico. If you would have judged him on where he was comfort-wise a month ago, he's much further up the ladder today than he was a month ago. And I believe this. He'll continue to grow and develop. I think the striking part of his game as a point guard is that he's an excellent shooter, and he can score. He's not just a distributor or a quarterback. He's a quarterback who can make his teammates better, but he also will have several big nights scoring.
How special is this year's freshman class as a whole compared to classes you've coached in the past?
Well, we've been lucky. We've had a lot of great freshman classes, and there were a lot of great freshman classes before I ever showed up as the coach as well. As you know, it's been 30-plus years of excellent recruiting and a lot of great players and talent. One thing that I love about this year's class, if you just judge our incoming freshmen, there's 4 of them. They all have won big before they ever showed up here. Nico won multiple state championships. Josh Green won the mythical national championship at IMG Academy this past spring. Zeke won a state championship in the state of Minnesota, which I believe is a lot more difficult to do than a lot of people realize, maybe outside the state, because the state of Minnesota has really produced some terrific talent over the last decade. Zeke's one of them. But he won the state championship last year at Hopkins, and then Christian Coloco, he won the California state championship, which everybody in here understands how valuable that is. So you think about those 4, they've won big where they're at. I think they all come from really unique, very good families, and they're about the right things.
Are there any efforts to get Jamaro or Jordan eligible this year?
Not Jordan. Jordan will sit out. He'll be here in his year of residence, but Jamal and his family are working towards the possibility of that. That's really all I can comment on regarding that. But if you'd say, is there a possibility that he might be able to play, I would say yes. And I think I'll stop there.
Sean, you've had a number of nice rosters through the years, obviously. This seems like it's a good mix of young and old. Is it a nice mix for you moving forward?
It really is. It's. I think you're either at the beginning of your career or at the very, very end. If you look at a lot of our players, even 2 of our graduate transfers. Stone Gettings is somebody that you guys are maybe more familiar with because he practiced with us, at Christmas and beyond a year ago. But I think you're aware that Stone graduated from Cornell. It says a lot about who he is, and he's in one of our graduate programs right now. But he's going to bring a wealth of experience, physically here early on. He ran a 5:14 mile, which is pretty incredible when you consider he weighs 230 pounds, 6'9". He also bench pressed 185 pounds 19 times. So kind of shows you like the difference between a freshman and a senior. And having said that, Zeke Najee, who's a freshman, who's the youngest player on our team, he also benched 185 19 times. I think that's what DeAndre did in his rookie year here. So when you look at those 2 guys physically, Zeke, DeAndre, I think, they're at the beginning of their career, but they're physically developed. But Max Hazard, we're familiar with his brother Jacob, who was a walk-on here. Max comes from UC Irvine, a great coach, won over 30 games in a season, which is a heck of a benchmark. Max was the MVP of his conference tournament, played in 2 NCAA tournament games this past year. So he's not only a graduate of UC Irvine, but he's a winner, and he comes to us with a wealth of experience. So, we all know Chase Jeter, who's in his 5th year. Chase already has his degree. Dylan Smith, who's in his 5th year, who's now been with us for 4. So to your point, Steve, you have quite a few guys who have a wealth of experience and are older, and hopefully that mix will come together for us.
How would you evaluate the offseason for the Pac-12 as a whole? Seems like it should be better this year.
I believe the Pac-12 will be really strong. We have more depth. The bottom of our conference, which during my 10 seasons in the Pac-10 and Pac-12, there are times when we've had a very good upper tier or a couple of teams that really could challenge deep into the NCAA tournament, but maybe the bottom team or a couple teams at the bottom almost acted as an anchor against all of us. But this year, I don't believe that's the case. I think the middle has never been stronger. It's hard to differentiate maybe between the very top teams and maybe 4 through 8, 4 through 9. And so I think the depth, the quality depth. I also will say that, again, we've had some very good coaches in our conference during my time. But this class of coaches right now, the 12, we have maybe the strongest from top to bottom that I've seen, and I think that's really healthy for the future.
Have you been able to, in practices, quantify your three-point shooting percentages with the new distance?
No, we haven't, but that's a great question because I have experience in international basketball, FIBA, And I think everybody's aware that the new line in college basketball is identical to FIBA's line. And a few years ago, when we were over in Greece with Team USA and just watching younger players shoot, it's a big difference. I think the biggest difference is the occasional three-point shooter that can keep you honest from behind the old three-point line. It's way more challenging for them to take that big step back. Maybe the elite shooters will still shoot a very good percentage, but I do think it will affect both the defense and the offense.
Coach, you talked in your opening statement about not talking about investigations. So this question is not about that, but about recruiting. Amidst all that you've had to deal with over the last couple of years, how did you and your staff manage to bring in such a highly rated freshman class and transfers?
You know, what I will say to that is a big reason that we moved to Tucson over a decade ago is because of the amazing history of this program. If you ever want to look at some amazing team pictures, just start going back to when Coach Olson was here, not just in the last decade that he was here as the coach, but you can go through the first decade. There'll never be team pictures like that ever taken again because, you know, Aaron Gordon won't be on Stanley Johnson's team. Lowry Markkinen won't be on DeAndre Ayton's team. But there have been amazing players that have come here for generations, and there's a reason. We have the largest college town in the United States. There's no place that replicates Tucson, Arizona when it comes to supporting a college basketball passion. McHale Center is one of the iconic home courts in the country. I don't believe that our home court gets nearly enough credit when you consider the winning percentage over decades and how it feels to play in front of 14,500 people day in, day out, regardless of our opponent. We've led the Pac-10 and Pac-12 in attendance for, I think, over 30 years, and it'll eventually get to 40 years. I can keep going, but, you know, you leave a place like Minneapolis, Minnesota, on a cold February day like Zeke Naji did, and it was wind chill minus 12, and he's playing lands, and it's 82 degrees on that day. You know, he gained plus 100. And yet he's able to walk into an arena and see UCLA versus Arizona, and you walk away saying there aren't many places that make you feel that way on a cold February day back home. So there's a tradition. There's also a tradition not only of winning but of young players that have left and gone on to do remarkable things in the NBA. Not the players that we've recruited, but you know, way more the players that Coach Olson recruited. Steve Kerr, he's older now. He's known as the Golden State Warriors coach, but you know, Steve wasn't a McDonald's All-American, but he's a 6-time NBA champion, 5-time NBA champion. You know, one of the great shooters that's ever played our game. Came here because Coach had a way of identifying unique talent. So it's not just a house of McDonald's All-Americans. It's a place where a lot of people have developed over decades, and it didn't start with me. It started a long time ago, and I think there's a tremendous trust with people and families when you have that to sell.
You had all those positives. Did you have to overcome doubters questions, those kind of things?
I mean, there's a lot of people that answer the questions here at our university besides me. I mean, we're very fortunate, and I talked about this at the beginning. Dr. Robbins, you know, he goes above and beyond. Just his duties, he's swamped with running our university, but takes an amazing interest in our sports programs and our athletic department. And I think that really shines through when people have an opportunity to talk to him and with him about our future. And the same thing with Dave Hickey, our athletic director. So there are a lot of people that answer those questions. Brent Blaylock, our compliance director, and the people that he's brought to be a part of his team, you know, they're very good at their job.
A lot of the guys, the guys that came in and recruits pretty much seemed to say across the board they were comfortable with everything that was explained to them off the court. Now that they're here, the whole team's here, things are going, like you said, the investigation's going on. Kansas got their notice, apparently. Has there been anything you have to deal with this team, or have they already kind of shut it out as far as?
No, I mean, young people are resilient and, they have their future in front of them. I mean, you just think about the opportunity for our incoming group of 4 freshmen. I mean, I think they're really focused on their own careers, their own goals, but also to have our program and team bounce back from a year ago. They know that they're going to be counted on heavily. That's the other thing that we had. We had great opportunity. All young people that sign up to play in college basketball, they want to have that opportunity to step in day one and contribute, compete for starting roles, and have a big opportunity as a young freshman. And this group has those opportunities in front of them, and I think that's where their focus is.
How's the chemistry that you've seen so far and maybe the potential of it moving forward?
Every coach at the beginning of the year, you probably know what I'm going to say, Steve. I've answered this question a number of times. You feel really good about your chemistry and great about your depth. And I'd say somewhere in late October, a few things have changed. I don't know if anyone can really answer that question until we're all on one bench, where opportunity is given, earned, who starts, who doesn't start, and being able to play for really what's at stake here, and that's to win and to compete for championships. So practice, the development, that's a big part of this. So far, so good, but not until our team starts moving through some of these ups and downs. We have a very challenging non-conference schedule based on that we have 8 new players, and what we went through a year ago would not surprise me if we don't take a few lumps in the months of November and December. But I do believe we have a much bigger upside, a higher ceiling. A year ago, it's kind of like the more that we moved forward, the more it worked against us because we didn't have great depth, especially up front. Any injury or adversity, it could really paralyze our team. This year, my hope is that we can play through that, not just on game day, but just in our practices. We've been able to scrimmage more, go up and down earlier than we have before. And that's just simply because we have more quality and more depth, and I'd like to think that'll help us.
Along those lines, I've always asked you this question, you know this, about the speed and tempo of your team to play faster. This team seems like it's perfectly suited for that to happen. Do you see that happening more and more?
I do. I think that our depth, though, is more up front. Where we have a lot of bodies and a lot of interchangeable parts is our front court, which I would say would be the polar opposite a year ago. Our depth in the back court, I haven't talked about Brandon Williams, but of all the young players that we've recruited that have been guards, I had as much optimism about his career, still do, but to lose him like we have is something that is real. It happened. It's not a good thing. And we're going to work, side by side with Brandon. We already have to get him back healthy again. But he's out for this year. And, to have a backcourt of, for example, him and Nico, or, be able to combine a Dylan Smith with Max Hazard and with Brandon, that gives you a little bit more depth. So maybe I can't answer that quite as easily right now.
What can we expect from Josh Green this year? And have you had a guy that's comparable to him as far as skill, athleticism, length, et cetera?
Yeah, so Josh Green physically is unique. He's every bit 6'5". I would say maybe 6'6". Tremendous athlete, very physical player. Has really long arms. I think his wingspan is right around 6'11". Coming in, some of the things that maybe you loved about Nick Johnson. The way he jumps, how athletic he is, how versatile, the number of things that he can do on defense and offense. But yet maybe the best is yet to come because, his skill will continue to catch up with his athleticism. I believe that about Josh. The one asterisk I'll put next to him is, Josh has had both of his shoulders surgically repaired the last 2 years. He had 2 torn labrums. So he's healthy. He's full go. We've had a number of players that have gone through this. Ira Lee, Ryan Anderson had one shoulder, and we were able to rehab them, and they really played their entire career with no problems. But Josh has missed, in essence, 9 months in the last maybe year and a half of not shooting, not playing basketball. So I don't want to say he's rusty, but I think the best is yet to come for him. We're obviously incredibly excited to have him. And a lot like Nico, I'll answer his question the same way, that he's a part of a puzzle. He's at sometimes going to be called on to be a big part. But, we're going to win and lose as a team, and these guys are going to develop, and they're going to have their bumps in the road for sure.
You mentioned the non-conference schedule. I mean, you've got Pepperdine, Illinois, New Mexico State, Gonzaga, St. John's. How concerned are you about the young crew going through that non-conference schedule?
In some ways I'm very concerned. You want to win every game, but, it's the one thing about the NCAA selection committee, there's no fraudulence when it comes to what they're trying to reward. Maybe a few years ago, one committee would react different than maybe the next or the previous one. They want you to challenge yourself in the non-conference part of your schedule. They realize that you can't control the conference that you're in, and they'll judge you on everything, the entirety. But the months of November and December, on where the game's played, who you play, how you do, is very meaningful. And I do think that they understand that if you're playing a difficult schedule, you may lose a few, but they would rather you play against the best than to sit at home and just kind of eke out wins maybe against competition that won't be a part of any tournament. So we always try to put a balanced schedule together, and this year I don't think it's any different, but I'm excited about our schedule. It gives us plenty of opportunities. We'll learn a lot. What better way for our incoming freshmen to really understand college basketball than to play against these teams that have their own visions of March Madness than the ones that are on our schedule. And we're going to grow, and we're going to get better through those months this year for sure.
Jeter had a good year last year, but if Chase had stayed out of foul trouble and stayed healthy, he could have had a great year. Someone who's always got a lot going through his time, where's his mindset at right now?
Well, you just have to remember with Chase that he's played one full year of college basketball. Previously, although he was a part of a great program and I'm sure worked hard on a daily basis, he didn't get a lot of opportunity in games. And as oftentimes is the case, there's nothing that gets you more ready or more prepared than actually being in the fire playing. And, he learned a lot last year. I do believe that he can bounce from where he was a year ago with that experience and a great off season and have his best year that he's had as a college basketball player. We're counting on him. There aren't many 6'11", 50-year seniors with the track record of Chase. And I think that he's a leader. He's somebody that's a good player. A lot of programs would love to have. And maybe unlike a year ago, we're not counting on him game in, game out to be maybe our leading scorer, that it's more balanced, and that he's surrounded by, teammates that can take some pressure off of him more so than a year ago. So, but I believe that he's ready to go.
What does it say for a player like Chase and Dylan as graduates with the opportunity to go somewhere else that they decided to stick around considering the amount of turnover?
No, it says a lot about the character of them, their belief in our university, how much they enjoy being here. And that's what sometimes I don't think our fans completely realize is a big reason that people like Chase and Dylan stay for a fifth year, or an even bigger reason that young players want to come to Tucson and be a part of Arizona basketball and our university is because of how our fans make them feel. It's just they recognize that it's not like this everywhere. And for a coach, for a player, and you watch it on TV, it's really a magical place both on and off the court. And that's why our Red Blue game, which is on Friday this year, a couple of people have asked why we've moved it up. Two reasons. From a recruiting perspective, I think the further down the line that date exists, the more delayed in decisions seem to happen. A lot of people don't want to make a decision until they visit. And if that date's late October, well, they're not going to make a decision or be prepared to make a decision, an informed decision, until they can touch and feel Tucson and the University of Arizona and compare it to their other choices. So moving that up makes sense. And also, The red-blue game is such a big event for our current team. Family and friends are here. It's the first time they play in front of 14,500. As much as we talk about it being a developmental part, I think the biggest challenge of that game is just to deal with everything that's going on and off the court, and to kind of get those goosebumps out of the way and get that first game under your belt of playing out there in McHale. So I think having that earlier will also allow us to get that done with and then move on and really get to real practices and the development part of our team. And having said that, it's a big recruiting weekend. Our fans know that, and I think we have a few tickets left, and hopefully we'll be able to sell those here in the next couple of days.
What are you looking at from Devon A this year?
Devon A early on might be our most improved player, which makes perfect sense. Devon A wasn't highly touted coming out of high school. I mean, he had plenty of other good options, but we've had plenty of other incoming recruits that have been higher ranked. But part of that with Devon A is he's a late bloomer. When he came here, he weighed below 170, and yet he's 6'5". So he needed time. He needed a year's worth of practices. He needed to get a sense of what it felt like on and off the court here. Needed more time in our weight room, and you'll see just physically he's more mature. He's bigger, stronger. Even a year ago, with as slight as he was, one knack he has is an offensive rebounder. He could keep the ball alive, and that's a big skill. And I think with Devon A this year, just talk about perimeter depth. He's somebody that we're counting on to really improve from year one to year two, and so far he's really shown that.
What are you looking for? The biggest jump from him, say defense, shooting, what are you looking for?
I just think overall maturity, knowing what it takes on offense and defense, and just being understanding of how hard it is to practice every day, and learn what accountability is. Being held accountable isn't a personal attack. Sometimes a young person, you just wait a second. You mean everything's important? Yes, it is. It's kind of what the world is like. If you get a job and you pick and choose on how hard you work when you get there, might not last very long. So you learn those types of things in college, and I do believe that Devon A, he's way more mature. He's much more worldly this year, and because of that, he's an overall better player.
In the offseason, he said he was going to transfer, then he decided to come back. What happened just during that sequence?
I think he really had a long talk with himself. It was no really manipulating on our end. I think he had an opportunity to just think about the future away from here. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a place that's not like a lot of others. And by no means does it fit every player. In our best attempt, just like in our university's best attempt, there are always going to be those students or student athletes that maybe would be best served to go to another university and get a fresh start. I mean, that's the way of the world. But in Devon A's case, I think we're all really excited about him coming back. It was great for me to see his teammates' reaction, because nobody was happier to have him back than his teammates, and I think that says it all. A lot of times when a young guy leaves, you kind of sense that his teammates almost are kind of shaking their head that they made a good decision, and sometimes that happens.
Over the last couple of years, with all the accusations, rumors, innuendos, how have you managed to maintain focus on coaching and developing players?
I got into being a college basketball coach to really be connected with the players, to develop them. I was a student athlete a billion years ago, and had an amazing experience. And to be able to stay in the game and be a part of it on the other side is something that is very, very rewarding, and I keep my focus right there.
All that noise out?
Yes.
In town, expectations are always high, that. Nationally, they're kind of tempered, top 20, whatever. How does that sit with you?
I mean, I can't control the expectations. I don't think that we as a staff have ever run from what's expected here. We have a saying in our locker room, don't ride the coattails of those who have been here before. I don't walk around here acting as if we've gone to 4 Final Fours. I acknowledge that it's happened. I try to remind people of how difficult that accomplishment is. That's why, Coach Olson's one of the iconic figures in all of basketball because of what he accomplished over several decades here. However, this model of college basketball, answering the first question of this press conference, you have to do it all over again. There's very few teams, even the best of the best, that return, a great amount of experience. And when you do, you're the heavy favorite. And all you have to do is look at the names in the recent Final Fours. Texas Tech did it with today's model. Had a couple of great grad transfers. Had a few younger players that were under the radar that they've really developed, have a great coach, and they almost won a national championship this year. Virginia did it not by getting the most McDonald's All-Americans on their roster, but by the development of very good players within, and obviously playing for an amazing coach and being an incredible defensive team. Same with Texas Tech. They're just different versions now. And so with that, every year is a new beginning, and you have to start all over again. I don't know if the experts could really predict this year's college basketball at this moment because there's so much that remains, unanswered.
Jack Murphy brought to the coaching staff?
Jack Murphy's maybe the perfect coach to come here at the perfect time. Reason why I say that is very seldom do you have a head coach, which we've had several head coaches that have come here and become assistants, and they all bring a wealth of experience. And there's nothing like being in that seat, that first seat. And then when you have the opportunity to be the assistant, I think you can really be a great one because you see things differently. So Jack has that experience, but yet he's very youthful. He has a ton of energy, loves to recruit, and he also combines that head coaching experience with being in the fire at Memphis with Josh Pastner, recruiting, a very high level type of prospect. And I think the most important ingredient that Jack brings is, man, he loves the University of Arizona. And we really need that at this time for people to understand what a great place this is. And he was here in many roles with Coach Olson, and he's attached to some great former teams and players. He was one of them. He's their peer. He saw things at a Final Four level. And I think if you think about that perspective that I just brought up, you could see why I'm so excited. And I think the players can mention that, our staff can mention that, and Jack also he has no ego, which is remarkable. It's hard to get a coach that's talented with no ego, and he really fits in well with really all that we're doing: recruiting, coaching, being a sounding board for someone like myself, and he's very familiar with Tucson. Like, he knows what River Road means. He knows what the foothills means. He knows that you got to bring water when you hike the mountains in the summer. He's not a foreigner to Tucson. He knows what makes this place tick.
Is there added pressure on you to get to a Final Four because of the history of success here?
I felt pressure the day that I came here, and it's never really left. The pressure that I feel the most is to get both feet back on the ground and to make everybody proud of our basketball program. And that's our fans, that's, Dr. Robbins, that's Dave Hickey and our administration, and, that's some incredible donors that have supported my family and our program and staff at a level that I don't know has ever been seen before. So I think the challenge is every day, and we're up to that challenge. I think we're all really excited and looking forward to it.
Does it feel like 10 years already?
It feels like 100 years. It really does. 10 years in college basketball, all that you have to do is, I think I've counted maybe 35 changes in the Pac-12 on the football side. I could be wrong, in and around there, and maybe a few less, but not a ton less on the basketball side. It's not easy to be at one place for 10 years, and my family and I are grateful every day that we're here and looking forward, like I said, especially to the challenges of the next 7 months. We're going to have plenty, and hopefully we can bring this team together and have a great season.
How do you figure the last 10 years as Arizona's head coach has affected you?
I'm sorry?
How do you figure the last 10 years as Arizona's head coach has affected you?
You know, like everybody that goes from 40 years old to 50, you learn a lot. I think you kind of roll your eyes at those that are 40, and because you recognize that there's a lot of challenges and a lot of unknown that lies ahead of them. And by the same token, I think that you, with that experience, you really look forward to the opportunities here in the future because you're that much more well equipped to handle those.
Could you talk a little bit about the CATS Life Skills program and what that does for your players outside of the court?
Yep, so we've learned a lot about our Cats Forever program. I'm sorry, Cats Life Skills. So we have a number of programs here. So the Cats Life Skills, what it does is it really allows our players to learn who they are, the platform that they have to be a really good person and a human being above and beyond just an athlete, and really at times a student athlete. In Tucson, for example, Children's Hospital, the impact that our players can have away from the university, as in some ways star figures. In Tucson, our players in many ways are kind of like the version of a Los Angeles Laker in LA. That young kids, they look up to them and they admire them and they watch them on television. So I think learning the skills and how you can empower, those that are less fortunate, those that just need a smile on their face. I think the other part of the CATS Life Skills program is to give our current young people that are in our program the tools to handle the new world of social media, of the phone, of making good decisions, and how a simple 10-minute period of time can change your life. So accountability, all the different things, developing leadership skills, developing skills away from the court, and sometimes our step up program, which is you're part of a team, something that's bigger than yourself, and how to use that off the court as well, so that if you see somebody going down the wrong path, that you can really be helpful to helping save them. And but I think our program is nationally renowned, and every member of our team gets a heavy dose of that CATS Life Skills.
What's your long-term projection for Christian Coloco, and what are you looking for him now and in the future?
So Christian's one of those rare recruits that I would say is better than we thought. And we obviously thought the world of him. That's why we recruited him. We knew he had a big future and a bright future, but maybe one that's more down the line than here in the short term. But you never really know until these guys are here on campus how much they love the game and how smart they are inside the lines on the court. And Christian, for somebody who hasn't played basketball for very long in his life, he's very bright, picks things up easily. He's a quick learner. And the other thing we've learned about him is, Bill Walton always asks me every year, does that big man play basketball because he's the tallest kid on the court, or does he play basketball because he really loves the game? And I would say that Christian's that second type of kid. He loves the game. So he wants to work. He puts in extra work. It's easy for him to want to be good. And I think it's that combination with his talent that, every month that he's played here, he's gotten better. Even this year, like whatever happens this year for him on the court, the sky's the limit, and his future is it's brighter than beyond his freshman year. But we're really excited about him. We really are. The other thing is, his family's background is really unique, very academic. He's bright. He took the TOEFL a second time just so that he was able to be admitted into our School of Business, which I think everybody here understands. Our undergraduate School of Business is one of the best in the country, and he's entering that day one, which again says a lot about who he is off the court as well. So we're excited about Christian and really all four of our freshmen. You didn't ask me a lot of questions about Zeke Najee, but Zeke is a state champion. I watched Zeke this summer compete to make the roster of the under-19 Team USA, and I would say he's one of the final cuts. He almost made the team, which says a lot about him because that was the best of the best that were in that tryout for those 3 or 4 days. And Zeke's really young. He could be a senior in high school right now. And, we're excited about his starting point. When you can bench 185 19 times, you have some talent and you've worked at it. And I think you'll see that talent this year as a freshman that maybe is somewhat underrated.
Said that he was about as talented as any, physically talented as any freshman you've had. What kind of impact then would you look for? Obviously DeAndre Ayton's a high bar because of what he's done, but what would you look at from an impact from Zeke, though, for this year?
Yeah, you can't compare anybody to DeAndre. No one will ever be here like him again, and no one ever has been. And that's taking note of the amazing talent that's walked through these doors, but he's almost Superman. Oh, his category is over here. But everybody else, Zeke, how tall, how fast, I think how physical. He doesn't shy from contact, and his great strength. Now it's up to us to kind of align ourselves with him to continue to develop him as a player. And played for an incredible high school coach, and that's a big starting point for him. You can always see it by the freshman's starting point on defense. You could tell if they've been held accountable on defense because right away they play harder than most freshmen, and I would say that's the case with Zeke.
Coach, you mentioned cell phones and social media a few minutes ago. How has that changed coaching, the way you coach young players?
It's changed a lot. I think it's important for guys that are a part of our basketball program. You sometimes forget how young they are to not get caught up in the accolades that can come through that channel, and also the criticism. That you really have to take the most credence in the people that you deal with on a daily basis in your own family. I think that's prevalent in the NFL and the NBA, college football. It's not a college basketball or coaching issue. It's almost the way of the world. So helping them manage that, and that's why I like our Cats Life Skills program that was asked about. It's not just the coaching staff and our basketball program that tries to educate these people, these student athletes, these young prospects. We have people on this campus that are going to great lengths to help them develop.
Does that affect how your way you treat him in practices or reps at point guard and et cetera?
Our policy has always been, Jordan Brown would be the same, that you want to treat those guys like you're getting them ready for game one, because what that allows us to do is to have the most competitive daily practice environment that we can possibly have. When you have those two guys in key roles playing in every drill and competing at a high level, that just makes Ira Lee that much better. That develops Nico Mannion and Max Hazard and Josh Green and Devon A, because it's just there's nothing that can simulate the competition that they face every day. So until somebody tells us otherwise, we'll move forward with Jamal, and we'll really do the same thing with Jordan, so that we're the most ready we can be on opening night against NAU.
Do you still figure Max and maybe Devon A are kind of guys who get back into point guard?
Yes.
What about, say with Jordan, what's the rest of Jordan's mission sort of this year as a sit-out guy?
Well, Jordan, number one, he has a very explosive basketball body. I think that Chris Rounds and him, our strength coach, would be great friends if they're not already. Just nutrition part of things, the extra lifting, really pushing himself in the weight room. Jordan's gift is he's not only a hard playing guy, plays hard every day, but he's also a very hard worker. So when you're talented and you have that year where you can just focus on some of the things that maybe could be looked at as your weaknesses, I think it's really beneficial to your career. And I think this year will really benefit Jordan well. And I also say that there's nobody that we can recruit that would come out of the high school ranks that would be maybe to Jordan's equivalent or better. When you consider who he was coming out of high school, the fact that he played a year ago at Nevada on a really good team for an excellent coach, and now has a year to sit out, you're gonna see a player that's very well equipped and ready. And I would say the same thing with Jamal. you know, you can only imagine what he's gone through at Kentucky, competing every day, you know, with the expectations that are placed on their program. You know, he's seen it all, and you know, he's mature, and we're excited to add those two guys to what we do.
I'm wondering if you felt like, if you noticed a difference in ethic or personality with Jordan, because he did come out of high school so high, and then kind of almost got buried on a really veteran team last year in Nevada.
No, I mean, Jordan's never said a negative word about his experience at Nevada. You know, I think that he and, you know, and his mom and dad knew that Nevada had a really experienced top flight program, one that could have challenged for a Final Four. And you know, I think that he's looking forward to building on the development that he got last year. And, you know, we're excited that he's here. I know that. He's a great kid.
What do you expect from Stone Gettings this year? He has a really unique talent. He can shoot and he can pass.
You know, Stone is a skilled player on offense, and, you know, as evidenced by what he did this preseason, he just very hard worker, loves the game. And, you know, you always look for diversity in a front line so that not everybody is the same. You know, in a different moment against a different style of team, you know, we have answers. We have kind of tools that can play different styles. And I would say Stone Gettings is the most different from the other front court players that we have on our roster. And, you know, that's to his advantage.
When you talked about the chemistry, I know you said it was too early to tell, but does it feel different at all, because you do have not only so many new guys, but you have a lot of 18-year-olds and you have a lot of 22-year-olds, and, you know, kind of getting that together? How does it?
No, it feels different. Every team is different. You know, like we talked about earlier, it's hard to fathom the changes that you can go through from one year to the next. I mean, for example, we have 8 new players. That's a lot. You know, you only have 13 scholarships. 8 of those weren't here a year ago or weren't able to play. So just that alone makes it different. But I do think that it's unique when you consider how many newcomers we have that are freshmen or young people. Devon A is young. He's only a sophomore. And you put them on the same team with guys that are, you know, in graduate school. So I'm hoping that the older guys will mentor the younger ones, and you put it all together that it'll be a nice group of people.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Coach.